So today we are talking about one of the most special animals. Again, this is Ranger Russ's favorite animals, so you're going to have to hear me say that again, but this is one of my favorite animals. Before I get into that, I want to give everybody the reminders. Wash your hands. Make sure that you cough into your arm. Don't expose yourself. Don't get close to more than 6 feet within people. And when I say wash your hands, I don't mean just like this, okay? You have to really wash your hands, wash your wrist all the way up, really wash your hands. We need to really make sure that our hands are clean, that we're not coughing on people, that we're not possibly spreading germs to other people. I also want to tell everybody that fishing season has started early here in the state of Connecticut. So if you like fishing, let's see all those thumbs up for fishing. And a lot of the smaller parks within Connecticut are open. So I encourage you, get out, visit those smaller parks. Some of the larger parks are getting crowded at times, and it's harder to keep the 6 feet of distance. We really want to use all the parks and forests. Connecticut has state forests all over with miles and miles of trails. So lots of those, you probably won't even see anybody on them. So get out there and enjoy the trails, keep your 6 feet of social distance, and we should start to get through this all together. So again, the Meigs Point Nature Center is closed, and we will let you know as soon as it's open. And my creature that I'm doing the program on is trying to escape from me right now. So, but we'll let you know as soon as the Nature Center is open. You can do activities on our website, meigspointnaturecenter.org. Go into our virtual learning center, and you'll be able to give us some things that you've done. So if you've drawn a picture or something like that, you can put that up, and you can get all of the videos that we've done here, plus some little vocabulary lists, word searches, things like that. We're really trying to keep this fun. I'm having a great time doing this. I hope all of you are having as much fun as I am, and I hope that you're going to enjoy learning about the animal that we're going to talk about today. Yesterday, we talked about that really awesome electric blue crayfish. Today, we're talking about the bigger cousin of the crayfish. This is another crustacean, okay? This is the largest crustacean that we have here in Connecticut. Make sure you guys tell me where you're from as you send your questions up. But right here, we have a lobster, okay? I hope you can all see him. This is a boy, and he's being camera shy right now. So, this lobster, we call him Stop and Shop, because that's where he came from. Okay, you can get lobsters at grocery stores. They're very common. All over New England, they're really popular. We don't have very many lobsters left in Long Island Sound. We do have some, but they're very, very hard to find now. We can tell that this is a male. If you look on the underside, you see those little swimmerettes are all going under his tail. The first set of those swimmerettes are hard and pointy. That means that this is a male. If all of them are soft and floaty, then it's a female. So we have a male lobster here. Now, one of the most amazing things about lobsters is migration. So everybody knows, or most people know, there are lots of birds that migrate, right? He's trying to get away, and he just got everything wet. I'll go get him. Okay, there are lots of animals that migrate. Lots of birds migrate, but did you know that the lobster is one of those animals that migrate? In Long Island Sound, they can migrate. They will migrate out into the open, deep water of the Atlantic. And that's where they spend the winter. A lobster can migrate 225 miles, okay, in their migration. So that's a pretty far migration for an animal that's walking. You can see the antenna. So this animal is really nocturnal. We learned about nocturnal this morning, and we're going to talk about it again. This animal does not like the full direct sunlight. So it's going to be in deeper water where the light won't penetrate all the way, and it's really only active at night. During the day, they go and they get into a crack or a crevice, some rocks under the water. They do have gills, and that's how they breathe. They have an exoskeleton. We've talked about exoskeletons before, so that's an external skeleton. They don't have any bones inside of their body that give them structure, so it all comes from outside. And just like the crabs that we talked about, the armor, it's kind of like Iron Man armor. Okay, so the armor does not grow with the lobster. When the lobster needs to get bigger, it needs to molt. And it will shed off the exoskeleton, and then it can grow larger. And that actually determines how long they can live, because they can only live long enough for them to be able to molt. The larger they get, the more energy it takes, and eventually they're going to reach a point where it takes more energy than they have to molt. And by that time, they could be 80 years old and much, much bigger than this lobster that we have here. Just like the crabs we talked about, the lobster's eyes are on stalks, so it can actually raise its eye above its armor and look at what's going on behind it. And it does send out vibrations with the antenna, just like the crayfish did yesterday. So I hope you're all seeing that a lot of these animals, they're similar, and they have a lot of similarities between them, even if it's a completely different animal. Okay? He's being very stubborn and doesn't want to sit in the corner right now. So if you noticed, he swims backwards. Yesterday we were watching the crayfish. They will swim backwards as well. They usually walk forward and swim backwards. They can swim much faster than they can walk, so they're able to escape really quickly if they have to. The female can lay 75,000 eggs. Now, the amount of eggs depends on how big it is. So the bigger lobsters are laying a lot more eggs. A smaller lobster is going to be about 3,000 eggs, and a really big lobster, 75,000 eggs. So that's really impressive that they can lay so many eggs. That means that there are a lot of little baby lobsters. And a baby lobster is planktonic. I did talk about that with the crabs. What that means is it's a microscopic animal. It's swimming around in the water. It doesn't walk around on the bottom like the adult lobster. As they molt and get bigger, their body shape changes a little bit, and they start to take on more of the shape of what you see this lobster looks like. Then they're going to be on the ground. They're not going to be swimming around any longer. So they do start out planktonic, and that sounds like a really good vocabulary word. We'll have to throw that one into our vocabulary. So of those 75,000 eggs, it's estimated that only about 1% of them are going to make it to adulthood. So it takes them about 5 years to get to be an adult lobster, and of the 75,000, you're only going to get a few that become adults. The lobsters that live in Long Island Sound, one of the major reasons that we don't have as many any longer is the change in water temperature. It has to do with pollution as well, but with the change of water temperature, they really like cold water. So what they will do in Long Island Sound is they'll find the deepest parts of the sound where the water is the coldest, and that actually brings them together where they would normally be very solitary. They'll be spread out on the water. And we think that when they all gather together, if one of them is sick, then it spreads that sickness to others. So, I want you to take a look at the claw, okay? Now, this lobster did lose a claw, and just like the crayfish and the crab, when it molts, it will be able to regrow that claw. It won't be full size in the first molt, but after a couple of molts, it will have a full-size claw there. The claw that it does have, lobsters are very different from the crabs and the crayfish. Each of their claws is different. They have a ripping claw or a pinching claw, which is this one, and then the other claw would be the crushing claw. It's bigger, it's stronger, it has blunter teeth, this has much more fine teeth, and it's used for crushing its prey.
Lobsters will eat things like sea urchins, clams. They will eat scallops. So all the different types of shellfish. They will also eat fish. Usually they're going to be bottom-feeding fish, bottom-dwelling fish like flounder. The lobster will eat all of those. It used to be thought that the lobster was really just a scavenger. When the settlers first started settling this area, they looked at the lobster as the cockroach of the sea, and they didn't really like to eat them. It's actually out on Cape Cod, there was a prison, and the prisoners had to eat lobster. That's all they had to eat, and they would go out and harvest the lobster. At low tide, they would go out and collect the lobsters, and this prison actually had a riot because they were tired of eating lobster. They wanted to eat something else. Now, there was a famine, and the settlers were running out of food, so they started eating lobster, and that's when they realized that they really liked the way lobster tastes. So if any of you out there like lobster, you can give us a thumbs up there and say how much you like lobster. Okay, I think we can do some questions now, so I'm going to turn it so I can read the questions. Are boy lobsters bigger than girl lobsters? You guys start out with great questions. I really appreciate this. In the lobster world, the boys and girls are about the same size. So we don't really see a difference between the boys and the girls. Another good question, how do they breathe? They have gills. Similar to a fish's gills, the gills are inside of them. They actually leave, when they molt and leave the exoskeleton behind, part of the gill remains. So, and they will actually eat their own exoskeleton. The exoskeleton is full of calcium, and that's what makes their skin harden back into that armor. So it's great for them to eat, to get a dose of calcium. Everybody out there should be getting their calcium. All right, do we have any other questions? Where are the gills? The gills are in their abdomen, that center part of their body. Good questions. We have people putting where they're from. Let's see if we have... Sam is wondering, how do they eat? Great question. They use their claws to get their food. So the crushing claw and the ripping claw, they'll get their food. And then up underneath their eyes, they've got two almost little arms. Those are like external jaws, and they bring the food in, and we've watched them eat. They'll just take a fish and they grind it up like a wood chipper and suck all the pieces in. It's really spectacular to watch, and they can take a 3-inch fish and just grind it up and eat it in a minute. It's really amazing. How long do they live? Another great question, and like I mentioned with the crayfish yesterday, they just discovered a way that they can actually age lobsters. So we're just being able to tell how long they can live. It's a scale inside of their body, and they can count the ridges on the scale to see how old they get. Estimates are up to 120 or more, but now we'll really be able to tell because we'll be able to take that scale and identify it. All right, what else do we have? Oh, what are the predators on lobsters? From Evan and Ellie. So predators for lobsters, there are lots of them. Lots of things like to eat lobsters besides people. So any of the larger fish, striped bass, things like that, they do like to eat lobsters. Sharks like to eat lobsters. So if there's a bigger fish out there, that's really what the lobster has to watch out for as far as predators. Claire would like to know more about camouflage. Lobsters are awesome when it comes to colors, okay? This is called calico. And from the underside, it's got its underside up right now, it doesn't look like very good camouflage, right? It's kind of brightly colored. But the backside are all blues and greens. That's the color of the bottom of Long Island Sound. So it's going to be able to blend in very well with the bottom of Long Island Sound. There are crayfish out there, or lobsters out there, that are blue, just like the crayfish was yesterday. Sometimes they're completely orange. Occasionally they get pure white ones. Those don't survive as easily as often because of their color. They stand out and don't have as good a camouflage. Now remember, this lobster is nocturnal. It's active at night, so the darker coloration at the bottom really helps the lobster blend in with its surroundings. Okay, what else do we have for questions? I see lots of thumbs up. I appreciate that. Remember, keep on sending where you're from. We had some family from Washington, D.C. watching this morning, so if they're watching today, I'm giving you guys a shout out. I also would like to let you know about the website. If you haven't visited already, I really would appreciate it if you did. meigspointnaturecenter.org. Go to the virtual learning center. You can watch these videos. You can learn about the crabs and the crayfish, which are both related to the lobster. And it'll tell you a little bit more about them. But you can also put up your images. So if you guys want to draw us a picture, you can send it to us and we'll put it up on our website. I want to remind everybody that Connecticut State Parks are still open. If that changes, I will let you know as soon as I can. But for now, you can get out and enjoy the parks. I'm not sure how other states are doing, whether their park systems are open. I'm hoping that people are able to get some fresh air. And that's going to lead to a scavenger hunt, which we're putting together. Hopefully it'll be up Friday. We'll put up all of our new learning materials on Friday, and you'll see a scavenger hunt and another word search or something to do with all the vocabulary words that we put next to our videos on our website. Again, we need to give a thank you to the Friends of Hammonasset. They're the ones that are providing all the food for the animals while the building is closed. And I also really want to shout out and thank my docents. There are many volunteers that help to feed the animals, and they have been continuing to come in. We have shifts so that we're not overlapping. We're trying to keep our social distance. So there are shifts where people will come in all day to care for these animals. And it takes a lot of work. We have over 400 animals in the building, a little over 40 different species of animals in the building. That takes a lot of work to take care of. And we wouldn't be able to do it without all of the volunteers that continue to come into the Nature Center. And we really want to thank them for all that they do. All right, I see Middletown is chiming in. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode. Again, this is my favorite animal, and we're going to keep doing my favorite animals. Look for us if the weather is really nice. We're going to try and get outside and find some plants to look at. So we'll be talking about trees, shrubs, maybe some when the flowers start blooming, we'll be doing that. And I'm going to bring these programs to you as long as I can. So we'll let you know as soon as the Meigs Point Nature Center opens. I hope to see you all once the building opens. And thank you again.